Hello and welcome, and some good news for Age of Empires 4 because the people at Relic have seen fit to implement a new way of patching called server-side patching. Server-side patching is where they can circumvent the approval processes of Steam and Microsoft Store and get patches out in a much more agile manner. They've already used one of these server-side patches yesterday on April the 12th in order to push through a couple of changes that didn't make the big update from about a week ago or so. As Ranked goes live today, thank you so much, Shinove. As Ranked goes live today on Wednesday the 13th of April, and I'm about to start playing my first match, server-side patch 12,973 drops, and here are the following changes. Following on the heel of the Season 1 update, there's a brand new path of bringing you smaller, more pointed changes with server-side patches. This new approach allows them to make data changes that influence balance and certain bugs more quickly. With a server-side patch, you won't be required to download and install an update from your platform and launcher of choice. Instead, all you need to do is launch the game, where you'll be greeted by a notification prompting you to take a quick in-game patch. I just did, and it was 50 megabytes. After you've updated, that's it. You should see the changes take effect immediately. While we'll still need to rely on traditional updates for certain changes, as well as for including content, we intend to use this fast patching method to help with balance, gameplay integrity, and more, as we hear from you. Read on to find a list of balance changes we've prepared based on your feedback. Manganese projectile area of effect radius reduced from 1.25 to 0.75 tiles. That is actually an enormous change. Was that a 66% reduction in area? A big nerf. Little controversial topic in the community right now. Most people are asking for this. I think it's a good change, or at least a good tryout. Now, I'm also reminded of back in Warcraft 3, early Reforged planning. I was talking to the balance guy, and there was talks about like buffs to Keeper and buffs to Huntresses and Archers, and some of them were pretty radical, and I was saying, that's good, let's try it out, because they had promised years of ongoing support. So some of the more experimental changes, I was all for it, because I figured if we're agile with this thing and we're talking as good as we're talking now, then if it doesn't work out, it can just be changed in a month or 2 months or 3 or a week if it's really an egregious change that negatively affected gameplay. This was naive looking back, but I couldn't have known. Reforged was abandoned practically, and some of the balance changes that should never have been remained forever. Just like the ring in Lord of the Rings that should never have been forgotten was lost and then found by the most unlikely creature of all. With Relic, I am once again choosing to believe in the developer and thinking, if this doesn't end up working out, because we talked about this internally as well, then maybe it can just be reverted again. Can just be reverted, because the prediction is that maybe hand cannons, Streltsy, and Grenadiers will be stronger now, as Manganese were the main counter. But I'm really for trying this out. I am for trying this out, because Manganese destroy armies. Manganese plus walls are practically unassailable, and even horsemen, spears, archers, crossbow, anything can't get to Manganese when there's walls or keeps and so on. How do you counter Manganese? Only with Springald and Culverin. How do you counter Springald and Culverin? With Springald and Culverin. So part of like the siege meta is with how strong the Manganese is. Having siege superiority leads to Manganese allowance. Now, and bombers are just needed to kill keeps. So whether it will be good or bad, I think is not as important as trying it out and then seeing where it goes from there. It is a large reduction though. Ram bonus damage against walls. I don't think this will make a huge difference. In small areas, small wallable areas, I think it is a big deal. But like when someone made a really large wall, it costs a lot. You only need to break through in a singular point. It's already quite efficient to make a ram for a wall. But for like tiny walls, I think this will help a lot. So I think this is fine. Rams get countered by quite a lot of things, and only really counter walls and buildings. So I think that's fine. Monk movement speed in general goes up. So that see, they want battle monks. We want monks to generally be more useful without slowing down. But they do want them to be reduced when carrying a relic. And I think this is good. Like the warrior monk already got the same change, where he's slower when he's carrying a relic. He is mounted, so he's the fastest monk there is already. Except for, of course, the Delhi Scholar post-upgrade, the swiftness. But yeah, now every single non-warrior monk is also going to be slowed when carrying a relic. I think it's good. This, of course, buffs Mongols a little bit comparatively, because they can taxi and Uber around their prayer tent. It can unpack and then walk with the monk, and then it can receive the relic as it unpacks. And then it can pack up again and go to the next relic together with the monk. So the monk will have less downtime than other monks. Economy. Villages will no longer be interrupted by attacks while gathering resources. Many of you probably did not notice this change or the negative impact of this. There's this cool little animation where a villager gets staggered when he gets hit by anything, including a scout. He's like, that really hurt. Kind of like Tassadar and Haas. Like, But it had a actual gameplay effect, which was like a stun/disrupt, which meant that he was gathering less gold or anything for a while. So it was actually really effective to harass people's gold with scouts. Even if the player chooses to ignore or take the damage, they still got stunned out of gold gathering. And with the scout damage change going from 4 damage to 2 damage but twice as fast, it had become twice as effective. So it was brought up last week, and in fact before, and now a pretty quick agile change to fix it. That's great. Mongols. Khan weapon range reduced from 7 to 5.5 in all ages, in Feudal, Castle and Imperial, which I think is good. It was a pretty crazy artillery spring-old cavalry unit. And his damage goes down from 4 to 3 in Feudal, 8 to 6 in Castle, and he will have no armor anymore in Castle Age instead of 1 armor. I think that's good. They're trying to make the Khan a bit more of a bit less of a harassing unit, a fast range, free respawning unit, and into his support role where he bolsters armies with his signal arrows, armor arrow, attack speed arrow, and so on. So I think that's good. I think that's how it is intended, and not like as a solo harass unit. Camel Archer movement speed reduced from 1.69 to 1.62, which I think is good. Camel Archers were expensive, but they were beating everything. Knights, horsemen, spearmen, obviously, men-at-arms. They really only didn't do great into archers, but because they were so tanky and fast, they didn't really need to choose to take that fight. And now they're going to trade worse into everything a little bit, and they're not going to be able to kite as much. Great changes overall. And then a really interesting point about matchmaking. Ranked queues are now live. Here is the maximum Elo delta. The delta, of course, being the difference between your MMR, your Elo, and theirs. Before, after 3 minutes, you could already reach someone that was 500 Elo away from you. So recently, I've been about 800 MMR. That means that I could meet Bisticuti, who is 2200, after 3 minutes, which seems fine to me. I've lost more to him, but I've also beaten him. But when I meet someone that's 1400 MMR, like, I literally can't lose. And that is a pretty big difference. And those experiences are fine if you wait long enough, but 3 minutes is a little short. So now that's going to only happen after like 6 minutes, which I think is really reasonable. In Heroes of the Storm, they employed a system where after 10 minutes, there was a rapid drop in the tightness of the MMR spread. 10 minutes is quite long. I think it's a bit too long. And now it's 6.5 minutes here where you can have a maximum of 1300 MMR apart. So like, I'm 1800, let's say I'm 1800, I could meet someone that is 500, which is literally someone that logged in, played their first game ever, lost, and liked it so much that they lost another 20 times. Like, I could meet someone that's 0.20 or 0.50. They're like, I'm really enjoying this. Yeah, I think it's better to cancel after 6.5 minutes too. I agree. That's a bit crazy. But like, even 250 is really reasonable. So like a 5-minute wait and then having like this spread, I think it's really solid. I think this is a little tight. 54, that means you're always going to search at least 1.5 minutes almost. Like this is really rare at the higher levels to get. I think this could have been a bit looser. But yeah. Anyway, I think it's fine. We love hearing from you, share your thoughts, and so on and so on. So that's the server-side patch from yesterday. Now let's jump into Ranked.